Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first Wild Portishead live show of 2021. How exciting. And, well, as you can see, not just the usual face in the guise of Mr. Chris Sperring, but we're also joined tonight by a very special guest, Mr. Samuel Olney. And tonight we are, well, Chris, what are we going to be talking about tonight?
Bats. We're doing bats.
In fact, we could say that Samuel is our Batman.
Yeah. Well, Sam, you are Batman, aren't you?
I am. Yeah.
How long have you been working on bats?
Oh, about 10 years now, both conservation and professionally. So, yeah, while.
Okay, so you just to make sure everybody's in the picture. I mean, you have to be licensed, don't you?
You do. Yeah.
Take us through the license. Take us through the license process.
There's a few different options to be licensed. You can be what's called a volunteer roost visitor, which is a very important role, and that's more on the conservation side of things. If people find a bat, you get in touch with the Bat Conservation Trust, and they then send out a roost volunteer who will go give you some advice about bats living in your property or things like that. And then there's the science conservation research side of things, which professional ecologists and also researchers through universities will go down that route.
And who dishes out the who do you apply to get your license?
So in England, it's Natural England, but Wales and Scotland, Northern Ireland will have their own statutory bodies where you apply, and they dish them out.
One of the things, obviously, that many people watching this or listening to this will realize straight away is the heavy protection that surrounds all of the bat species. And I'm correct by saying that, aren't I? All of the bat species.
All bat species.
So they'll be familiar with that simply because of the fact, I mean, we heard it quite recently when the government announced its build policy. I can remember hearing those words of "no great crested newt or bat will interfere with the development again," and this bit always fascinates me because I'm actually a believer that we if you like, we over control things within nature conservation to a point whereby, for example, the bureaucracy surrounding a lot of species is basically means that members of the public can't get to it, or they can see it, they can get to stage 1, but they can't get to stage 2 because they need to go through all these different hoops, if you see what I mean. But with the bats, it's a bit different. Tell us why it's so different with the bats.
So I think for bats, like a lot of our natural species, over the years, we've started to destroy their habitat landscapes and things like that. In the 1980s onwards, with building changes, where a lot of the bats roost within buildings, we are making them basically animal proof. So a lot of their roosting sites are no longer viable. So as you do a barn conversion and put mortarless ridge systems in, they can't access them anymore. And so they're already taking a massive hit on their numbers over the years. And if we don't do something to stop it, which is why all the legislation and things are in place, we're going to see even further drops, and eventually we won't see any more bats. Bats are great. For example, even our more common species will eat a couple of thousand midges a night. So if you can imagine, if we didn't have bats, how many more insects there'd be about. Quite. In terms of bats, using them on the wider scope of things, they're absolutely fantastic as an indicator species, which means we can survey for them really easily, but they tell us a lot more about the habitats where they're found for other things like rare plants, rare other mammals, other inverts that may also be going extinct. So we can use bats to survey for a whole range of other things.
So what we're going to do now is what I'm going to do now is paint a picture of 2 different areas, and we're going to end up back in the bats in Portishead, which obviously is what we're going to try and focus on. I want you to take you now, though, to a very special place that actually isn't that very far away from us. And that's the Mendip Hills and around about Cheddar Gorge. Now, I think there's two species of bat there which are incredibly well protected and incredibly well studied. Tell us about them.
Yeah, so we're lucky in the southwest generally, and we do get these rare bats in the Gordeno Valley, but they're the greater horseshoe and the lesser horseshoe. There's a few other rare bats that will also be there, but they're the two main ones, and they're fascinating bats. They predominantly hunt in woodland when they're younger, but as they grow up and the range of the bat increases into adulthood, they start hunting across cattle pastures and environments like that.
And I'm right in saying, obviously, with Mendip, we think of Mendip, the caves, great limestone hill with great caverns throughout because of the nature of the geology there. And we're talking about two real proper bats which live in caves, aren't we?
Yeah, completely. They are the stereotypical bat that you'll see in scary films that hang up, but by their feet. Most of our bats in the UK aren't like that, and they're crevice dwellers. But yeah, these two particular bats are, special.
So let's now come into Portishead, and obviously it's the focus of Wild Portishead to look at the urban area and wildlife within the urban area. Well, first of all, do you know if we've got any special bats, especially rare bats? Because I've got bats in my garden, and I see them in the summer months. And what quite fascinates me is that the actual number, so I'm not talking about species, but the number of bats which I can find hunting has gone up dramatically, I would say, in the last 10 years since we've been growing native shrubs in the garden, and we've allowed that to develop up. So clearly, it's a bit like I keep talking about with the sparrows. We've increased the insects, therefore they're doing much better because they've got something to feed their babies. So obviously, it's the same kind of scenario going on with the bats. What type of species are we talking about, though, that would be in the urban area?
So you'll get common varieties, and when I say common, they're still rare in the grand scheme of things. But the more common species of bat you'll get in urban environments are the pipistrelles. There's two more common pipistrelle species, common and soprano, and they are the bats that you'll see roosting under roof tiles in houses, and they're quite happy to go into city centres. So we definitely have them in Portishead. Rarer bat-wise, we're likely to have serotines here. I know on the hill at the top of Clapton, this side of Tickenham Bridge, there's a couple of big serotine roosts up there. So there's likely linked roosts to those roosts over in Portishead.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned serotine, because can I jump in there?
Yeah.
Because I would say probably about 15 years ago, a friend of mine who was studying bats, had all the gear, came in the garden and said, "You've got serotine." So, and in terms of where I live, let me describe this to you. So I am down, I'm in Northwestern. I'm right on the edge, the last turn off before you get out onto the valley itself. And I've got Western Bigwood close to me. So are we talking about the right kind of habitat there for them?
Completely, yeah. So they tend to be on the outskirts of, serotines tend to be on the outskirts of towns because they like the wooded environments to hunt along forest edges, lovely big mature hedgerows, that type of environment. Most bats favour that environment, but serotines, that is where they predominantly hunt. You're towards your neck of the woods, you may either get some other types of species like that are particularly rare, like barbastelle, which are again woodland specialists, but they will be definitely on the outskirts of towns where the light levels are low. There's no reason you wouldn't get them if you went for a walk with a bat detector. You wouldn't pick them up in the Gordeno Valley.
Well, I tell you what, one of my favourites is watching the noctules hunt. So amazing. We're talking about a big bat, aren't we? I mean,
yeah, our biggest bat, yeah.
Yeah, it's about that. It always reminds me, size for size, and do correct me if I'm wrong, about the size of a blackbird flying around.
Yeah, they've got a wingspan of about 30 to 40 centimeters. They weigh about 25 grams, so that may not seem very big, but our smaller bats weigh about 4 grams. So
Wow.
there is a massive difference in the noctules. If you're lucky enough to see noctules, they are aerial hunters. I mean, all bats are aerial hunters, but they'll fly along, and then they'll be sending echolocations downwards. And when they find an insect, they then dive bomb on top of them, and then ping back up and carry along. So we're talking 40, 50 meters up into the air for a noctule.
Yeah, and I can remember them right back in the early days of creating barn owl habitats at Royal Portbury Dock, where we used to have margins, big margins around the edges of fields of long grass.
Yep.
And literally, you could watch these bats drawing squares around fields. It was brilliant.
It's amazing.
Absolutely amazing bat. One to look out for, obviously, around Portishead. So what will the bats be doing right now, this time of year?
They're in hibernation. I call it hibernation. It's not true hibernation if you know about these things, but in other words, they will slow their heart rate, likely be underground or in a place with a low temperature but a constant temperature. They can't have fluctuating temperatures, otherwise they wake up. But bats, unlike a polar bear, for example, will wake up throughout the winter to go out for a quick feed or a quick drink. So it's not true hibernation.
And I've seen that most recently down Wharf Lane.
Yeah.
So if you walk, even now this time of the year, you walk down Wharf Lane, and it was more so when the elms, they've cleared a lot of the dead elms out now, unfortunately. But when we had the dead elms standing, what I would see a lot at this time of the year is winter moths.
Yeah.
And you get the winter moths flying just as it was getting dark, and then suddenly it could even be quite cold, Sam, and then suddenly there'd be a bat out flying.
Yeah.
And then there'd be another one. And quite bizarre, actually, in terms of when you're recording.
It is amazing. I mean, I just recently have seen bats, if you're lucky enough to do it, a still waterway, pond, and if you're at the right time, they will be coming out throughout the winter to glide along the water to get a drink. So it does happen. It's quite amazing.
Okay, Sam. Now, taking it from a conservation perspective and the fact of what we want to do in Wild Portishead, this is a chance now to hand over to you completely and say, okay, Sam, the floor is yours. How are we going to help bats in urban Portishead?
Yeah, so as a volunteer organisation, I think the main way we can help bats is just being aware of them, understanding them, and crucially providing new habitat for them. So as I was saying, in urban environments, we've removed a lot of their opportunities to roost. And so putting back new opportunities for bats to find to enable them to roost is what I'm hoping to achieve. The easiest way to do that, similar to bird boxes, is to put bat boxes up. There's a brilliant example.
That's one I should say. Let me cut in and say that's one that Laura made. I believe Laura made it last weekend following a design. Now, okay, that's her very first attempt. So come on, Sam, marks out of 10.
I have chatted to Laura about it. I gave it a strong 8 out of 10.
Oh, so, very good.
I think it's excellent. Yeah, so this is the Kent Bat Box design, which was created by Kent Bat Group. It's freely available on the web. I'm sure we can send a link somewhere. But it was designed for simplicity, for anyone to be able to build it out of a single plank of wood. Now, it's important to say, make sure if you do want to attempt this yourself, to get untreated wood. Sawn timber is best because it provides a rough surface for them to grip onto. If you can only get plain timber, then you can rough it up with a saw blade yourself. And yeah, it's very simple. The bats will crawl up into the crevices that you make, and yeah, we'll roost there.
So in terms of where we actually put these boxes, Sam, let's have a kind of, because you've been following what we've been saying on these lives, and obviously you follow the messages on our Facebook page. You know what we're trying to achieve in terms of when we look at people's gardens. We want things, and we're constantly trying to persuade the council to a little bit more neglect can go an awful long way. So should we, if we get, for instance, volunteers to build these boxes, or should we be specifically or be looking for gardens that are the best by habitat, or could we actually be gifting these boxes to people and then saying, now you need to change your habitats?
I'm going to go for the diplomatic option of a mixture of the two. I think where you have lots of habitat available, putting up more bat boxes can increase populations that are already there, but putting them up in new areas will encourage bats into the new areas and not just stay where they currently are. So there's benefits to both. As for exact siting of boxes, we tend to try and put them in sunny spots, especially breeding females. They like the boxes to be quite warm. So anywhere from a west, southwest to southeast kind of direction. Tall trees, sides of buildings are all fine, as long as they've got a clear drop zone beneath the exit of the boxes. Because unlike birds, which can easily fly to where they want to go, bats come out of a roost feature and drop down, and it can be quite significant depending on the bat species. It can be 4 or 5 meter drop zones they need. But I'd say for a general rule of thumb, for the bats you're likely to get in the Kemp bat box, if you leave 3 meters below a bat box, that's the kind of height you're looking for as a minimum.
Sorry to just dive in a second here, Samuel, but I've got a question here from John David Wilson, who says, being given a bat detector for Christmas, a Haynes one, do I wait to the spring to build it?
I'd build it now personally. I'd like me and Chris was just saying, bats will use different habitats, different commuting routes, different hedgerows at different times of years. So if you want to know what's outside your back gate, build it now, get out there, and then go out there again in the spring, go out there again in the summer, and you'll soon start to see different species using different things at different times of years. So
whilst we're on that subject, Sam, why don't we talk a little bit about citizen science and in terms of people having bat detectors. One of the ones that I quite fancy is the one that goes on the, I think it's Wild Acoustic do it. It goes on the end of my iPhone. So my iPhone ends up as the, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this.
Yeah.
That particular one.
1 second.
You've got it, have you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an Echometer Touch, and they're brilliant devices. They're very small. Can you see that?
Yeah.
This is a Pro version. You don't need to get a Pro. That's because I use it for work. But they're, off the top of my head, about £150, and they plug into, you can get Android versions for non-Apple devices, but they will allow you to hear what bats are about. And
obviously if you're obviously you're a professional guy. If you're using them for work, they're good enough for you.
Oh, completely. Yeah. It's they're absolutely brilliant, and they have an auto ID function. Well, I'll stress it's not perfect, and I definitely wouldn't use it as 100% confirmation of a species. But for the amateur who wants to know a rough idea of what's in his garden or what's down a back lane or anything like that, then they're brilliant devices.
But if we've got people who are going out recording in any case, somebody like yourself is never very far away to verify if we think we found something special.
Completely. Yeah, I mean, maybe a chat for another day, but one of my ambitions, I only moved to Portishead a couple of years ago. It's Portishead and the wider Gordeno Valley are an amazing location for wildlife. It's like a mini Somerset Levels in terms of the habitat, but with the added extra of lovely woodland. And so there are detectors that you can leave out remotely in certain locations, and they'll just be recording continuously non-stop. And so an aim would be to put a few of these about Portishead and the wider Gordano Valley and start getting like a bat map. And I know quite a lot of bat groups try and do this in their area, and it's a achievable aim to do it within Portishead.
That's like a soundscape, isn't it? I think that's Wild Acoustics do that as well, don't they?
Yeah, lots of different companies that make detectors do it.
Yeah, because there's one now which has come out for birds. So you literally build up you exactly what you're just saying there. You put these devices out throughout a woodland, and you build up a sound map, a full sound map of what birds are there, and obviously it's picking up things that the human ear isn't capable of picking up. So you're getting a much better. Sorry, I'm not having a go at anyone here, but you're getting a much better idea of what's about based on numbers and species, as opposed to people going out listening all the time. You'll never get rid of the people going out listening all the time. We need them. But there are times when, particularly when things are threatened, we need accurate data fast.
Yeah, completely.
So I reckon we can have a really good project here with Wild Portishead. And I don't know. Obviously, I don't know what the audience figures are like at the moment. Jonathan, you want to cut back in? But we need to get this message out. We need to get behind Sam and really get this message out to everybody in Portishead that bats are very, very special, brilliant indicators. We've talked many times on these lives about indicator species. And I think we need to get behind this and forward this as fast as we possibly can. And if we can get ready for the nights getting warmer and warmer, then we'll have more opportunities to potentially record.
No, absolutely. As you say, and it is an important indicator species because, you know, like so much wildlife, if we're starting to notice an absence of it, we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and if it's impacting on the wildlife farther down the line, it's going to impact on us as human beings. So, you know, it's always it's the early warning system. I think it's a good way of putting it. What we've done is we've put up links on the Facebook page to the Kent Bat box, and I've also put up a link to the Wildlife Acoustics bat detector, albeit it's their website, which is in America, but at least it gives people, you know, something to something to kind of like go and have a look for. But I absolutely agree. Just probably about 2-3 weeks before Christmas, I was walking along the coast path, and it was just that perfect kind of dim blue twilight. And I was treated to a display by a bat. No idea what it was. I only know it was a bat. And it was glorious to have it that close and just doing its thing.
Yeah.
You see? And I think we're going to talk about the sparrow survey in a moment. But I think at some stage, if we can actually start setting up a bat survey and start getting a better picture of what we've got in and around Portishead, I think that'd be a fantastic move forward.
Can I just jump in there and say, if anybody's been inspired tonight to go and get a bat box and put it up, can you please let us know so that we can have a register of where all the bat boxes are, and any which are up already. So this is an appeal out. Any that are already up out there, so that we can let Sam know, so that he can build up a map as well of where effort's taking place, and that way we can really start to get Sam to look at the effects of the effort that's taking place, and hopefully watch this group of animals really start climbing up that ladder again.
And again, I think this is a good opportunity for any parents out there watching is try and get your schools involved. Try
Yeah,
and get them to site one, schools, nurseries, get them on board and site a bat box. I'm sure we can rustle together the materials and actually build some so that we can actually donate some, to people who actually, to organizations that want to put one up. For a kind of like a project for 2021, I think that's certainly something that by the end of the year, we'd like to be able to say we have built X number of bat boxes. So these Kent bat boxes, they really are cheap to build. The materials are peanuts, really, for what you're investing in against what you are getting back in terms of wildlife. But yeah, any parents watching, have a word with your schools as and when you can, or have a word with your nurseries, and let's see if we can have a map of bat boxes we've got located around Portishead, but also start picking up on people's actual sightings as well. So that once we've located where there are bats, then we can actually start refining it as to what species they are. Chris,
Yeah.
I think this is probably a good opportunity actually I mentioned it just now, the Sparrow Survey.
Yes, put the map up. Let's have a look.
Well, just to let people know, this is what we're running. It's the Wild Portishead Sparrow Survey 2020-2021, and it's to build up a map of sparrow colonies, population sightings in and around Portishead. And well, look at this. What a fantastic response.
That's brilliant.
As you can see on that map there, we are getting, this is brilliant. This is what we want to do with bats, right? Yeah. But you can see we are building up a really good picture now, good citizen science of the house sparrow kind of like populations in and around Portishead.
Yeah. And there will be many more to be recorded, and that's why I think it's really wise to carry on in 2021. So again, anybody watching, listening to this, if you see the information, I think which is really valuable is where do you see a group of sparrows? Give us a rough idea. I mean, basically anything from 5 to 10 and then upwards. One that was reported to me, a group that was reported to me was over 30, which was quite amazing.
Do you know what, Chris? I've looked at that map and I suddenly realised I haven't actually added mine to it.
No, mine. I don't think mine are on there either.
No, and I mean the population in my garden is 30 plus.
Yeah,
it's a huge number of house sparrows. I think I've got pretty much the entire population of house sparrows and starlings in my garden.
Well, I've written for many years about the sparrows here because obviously in my garden. And that's basically because, to tell the story again very quickly, when I moved in here in '93, we had a good population, good strong population, and they gradually dwindled away to nothing. And so then changing the vegetation was that key to getting them back again. And they started off just 2 or 3, and now we counted the other day, and admittedly, we think they were augmented by other sparrows from other colonies because there was a lot of squabbling going on. They don't normally do that. But anyway, we got to 20 plus, which is really unusual for us. That's a big number. But it just shows that as I said, thank you for all the people, by the way, who have commented about my interview on Radio Bristol on Sunday with Steve Yabsley. Yeah, thanks for that. And one of the things that I said on there, which people picked up on, that conservation, we are conservationists, we are doom and gloom merchants. But actually, it's this stuff, the stuff that Sam's talking about, which is the stuff we also need to talk about. Not just we need to do this, we also need to then produce the results. And then when you see something like this with this map in front of you, you need to, for me, it's an FA Cup moment. You're lifting up the FA Cup. Yes, we can do this. And it's possible to turn all this negativity around into something incredibly positive that's great for people, not just for wildlife.
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, thank you to everybody who is contributing at the moment. We will put the link up to to the Google site that we've set up from where you can log your sparrow sightings. So certainly I need to go there because I need to get all mine up on the board there, because they are an absolute delight. Also, just as we're rapidly heading towards the end of tonight's show, is a reminder: we have extended our Wild Portishead big bird watching competition. So you still have time to submit your bird illustrations. We've got some templates up on the Facebook page. You can go and download, or you can email us and we'll email them to you. And essentially, we will do a draw for the best bird illustrations that have been coloured in. So this is where we want to get, kids who are at the moment, are back off school again. When they've got 5 minutes, get them all colouring, get them all drawing these things. They don't even, to be honest with you, they don't even have to be accurate colours. Go wild, Let's have robins with, with purple beaks and, green chests and whatever. Let's get people drawing and colouring in. And when we finally do the draw, this is the actual prize. This isn't a picture we've taken off the internet. This is the actual prize that you can win: a robin nesting box, a peanut feeder, a bird seed feeder, some high energy suet logs, and the robins' favourite things. This isn't just for robins, it's all birds, but robins in particular, mealworms. You could be winning this, so please send in your bird drawings, please.
Worth saying that preschool nurseries are still in, so they can get involved with this as well. Absolutely.
And just a final thing for tonight, a spot that I noticed in my garden this week is I've had my blackcaps have started to return. They usually turn up round about early January. Sometimes they've been as early as December. These aren't pics from this week, but if you see a bird like this in your garden, that is a blackcap. Very easy to spot, for the simple reason it's got a black cap. It's a very grey bird with slightly olive upper parts, but the distinctive thing is that black cap that it wears. If you see one with a slightly reddish colour, that's the female. But they are absolutely brilliant birds. The ones here, Chris, they tend to fly in from Central Europe, don't they?
Yeah, they're not our singing birds of the spring, so to speak. So the blackcaps that will be coming up in the summer and will grace the countryside with their beautiful songs. Those are unlikely to be in gardens, but these, it's so say we changed the behavior because of our obsession with feeding birds. These birds should have gone to Africa, but they over summer much further north, and several generations later, we've completely changed their behavior by supplementary feeding them in the garden. They've decided to stop off, and this is now, to them, must be Africa.
I say the thing I noticed during the week was as soon as I saw the one that turned up and was on the fat ball feeders, I think he must have literally just turned up, because for the best part of a day and a half, he would not leave that feeder alone.
Yeah.
So
it's probably a really good time to say we've just been through a cold snap. We didn't do a live at the beginning of the cold snap.
No.
And I know we were scheduled to. So let me just say now how important it is to not just feed the birds when we've got really cold weather, but also to make sure they've got fresh water. It's so important. And I think for the next live, what we need to cover is cleaning your bird feeders.
Absolutely.
And again, that is so important, because we talk about pandemics of human beings, but we can actually cause pandemics in birds by having dirty feeders. But we'll talk about that a bit more.
Especially
Don't
finches.
forget, beasts from the east could be coming.
Yes, beasts from the east could be coming. That's pretty much a wrap for tonight. So I'd like to say a very special thank you to Samuel Olney for turning up tonight. Samuel, that's absolutely brilliant. I think this has kick-started something which is going to be fantastic to follow up from the Sparrow Survey. And let's say, like I say, let's start building up a map of Portishead's bats, where they are. then we can get in there. Then we can actually start refining and finding out what species do we have in the town. So, you know, and this isn't a Wild Portishead project. This is something everybody watching can take part in. This is the point of what we are about. This is
belongs to you.
It belongs to you, exactly. So on that note, just to say thank you to Chris, thank you to Samuel, thank you to everybody watching who has commented tonight. We'll be back as and when, as you know, hopefully.
Oh, come on, Jonathan, tie it down.
Couple of weeks time, mate. Couple of weeks time. Couple of weeks time when we're all snowbound.
You forgot to mention, we on our Facebook page, we are at 909 followers.
Yes, let's get over 1,000
to 1,000
by the weekend. Let's get 1,000 followers. So mention to your friends, family, and you know, let's get to 1,000. So fantastic show. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We will be back hopefully in a couple of weeks' time with some brand new topics and some updates. So from us all this evening, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again very, very soon. So take care. Bye for now.